You know how to hold it all together, but when it comes to your relationships, something's always missing. Welcome to Emotionally Wealthy, a podcast for high achievers who are ready to trade emotional disconnection for clarity, fulfillment, and relationships that are nourishing, not draining. I'm your host, Karen Conlon, licensed therapist, transformational coach, and your guide in turning insight into action. Are you ready for it? Let's do this. Hey there. Welcome. This is Karen Conlon, and this is your very first episode of the Emotionally Wealthy podcast. You're probably here today because on some level, you have it all together. You are the person that people rely on. You're capable. You're able to figure things out. You're definitely the one that handles the things that need to be handled. And part of this is probably because you grew up being the one that was labeled as the strong one, responsible one, the one that can make decisions, and the one that didn't need much. You may have been praised for being easy, responsible, and self-sufficient, and probably didn't make a lot of waves. And apart from all of that, one of the things that I wonder is if anyone ever stopped to ask what it cost you to be all of those things for other people. Because here's the truth. The exact way that you learned how to not meet your needs by not being too much is also the thing that might be holding you back from the kind of connection that you actually want and need. I'm talking about relationships where you feel seen, valued, and emotionally safe on a mutual playing field, not relationships where you have to perform, or you have to manage them, or feel that you have to be productive or constantly doing something to earn your place or your worth. You know, emotional loneliness does not always look like being alone. It oftentimes looks like you being everything for everyone and still feeling invisible on the inside. If that landed even just a little bit, I'm here to tell you that you are in the right place right here, right now. First thing that I want to be very clear about as we continue on this first episode is that I am not just a person hosting this conversation today and the other ones that are going to follow. I am here today because I'm a person who's also lived all of that I just mentioned and more. For a really long time, I really looked like I had it all together. And from the outside, I looked like a powerhouse. And in many ways I was. There was nothing that I didn't set my mind to that I didn't feel that I couldn't figure out or that I could succeed on. But on the inside, I was still quietly wondering why. Why is it that despite the fact that I have all these accomplishments and success in whatever way I was defining success, why is it that I was still feeling very unseen on the inside? This podcast was born from that question. And from the years of both personal and professional work that I've had of helping people who are just ready to stop performing and ready to start connecting, I know that this is something that is not unique to just me or you. I know that this is something that is so commonplace, but it's really hard to pinpoint what the root of it is because we are so busy just trying to do and perform and achieve and succeed in order to find our worth in life, because somewhere along the line and somewhere in our lives, we were told or we understood that the way that we get positive attention and validation and recognition and maybe even love is by proving our worth through what we can do and what we can achieve and how much we can produce. I was raised by a single parent. I'm the oldest of three. I'm the only girl. I was taught to be strong and resourceful and not need much. And to be honest with you, I'll tell you what that actually really meant. What that meant was don't need too much, don't ask for too much, and always be paying attention to what other people need. That is what it meant to be strong and resourceful in my family of origin. I want to share with you a moment that really shaped that lesson for me. It shaped it and solidified it, even though at the time I was too young to realize what was happening. I was about 8 years old when one night I asked my mom to watch a movie with me. And that was it. I just wanted her to watch a movie with me. To give you context, my mom was a single parent. She had me very young, and she was always working. It's what she knew how to do. It's what she needed to do to provide. She didn't have much help from other people. It was really her hustling, working. She was an immigrant and didn't speak the language, but she always believed that work was not just about putting food on the table. She believed that there was so much more out there. That night, I asked her if she could watch a movie with me. And I, even till this day, distinctly remember I just missed her. I missed having her around. She was always present physically, but emotionally, rarely ever there. And I could imagine myself kind of tugging at her shirt or her blouse and just saying, Mom, can you watch a movie with me? Can you watch a movie with me? At a certain point, she snapped. She snapped at me and said something that I'll never forget. She stopped and looked at me dead in the eyes and said to me, do you know what's going to happen if I don't work? We're going to lose everything. If I don't work, we're going to have to leave our little apartment here and we're going to have to move somewhere really scary where there's going to be a lot of bugs and roaches and mice, and we're not going to be able to have food on the table. You're not going to be able to see your friends anymore because we'll have to move. Do you understand that? Is that what you want? Now, you have to understand that in the mind of a child, there's no nuance, right? There's no gray area. The only conclusion that I came to was, oh my gosh, when I ask her for something, when I ask her for her time, this puts us in danger. Me asking for your time is putting the whole family in danger on so many levels. I got the message loud and clear, or so I thought, because I was only 8. Nevertheless, I stopped asking. And the lesson that my nervous system learned that day was exactly that. If you want to be safe, don't ask for her time. Don't ask for connection. And I want to say something here. This was not because my mother was trying to be cruel. She was actually doing the best that she could with what she had. So I just want to be clear that today's episode, the rest of the podcast, is not about blaming parents. This is rather about naming conditioning, understanding childhood conditioning, understanding how these seemingly harmless phrases can actually shape the way that we look at life, the way that we see ourselves, the way that we see others, the way that we think others see us, and ultimately how safe we are in just being ourselves and asking for our needs in the world. You know, that moment taught me so many things, but most of all, it taught me that needing connection and asking for help or support was risky, and that wanting closeness could cost way too much. And I'll tell you what, that belief followed me into adulthood. I didn't realize it, of course, but it absolutely did. In my adult relationships, specifically the intimate ones, but most definitely in my family of origin, I became the one who handled things. I was the one who would handle disciplining my brothers, even though I was a kid myself. I was the one who supported others. I was the one who people leaned on and called. My mother noticed that I was very resourceful. And quite honestly, that resourcefulness at first really came out of a need to be safe. If I could be useful, if I could be productive, if I could do things and help people function better or be better in whatever way, then I was safe. That is the connection that I made, right? And what I learned early on. Then when it came time to let other people support me, I froze emotionally. Quite literally, I could not ask. I will give you a very personal example and specific example of what that looked like. When I was in my late 30s, going into my 40th year, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And I went in to have a full thyroidectomy, which is a removal of my thyroid. And it was a major surgery, obviously. When my two closest friends at the time realized that I was going into the hospital for a procedure, they called, of course, alarmed and said, "Hey, what's going on? Are you okay?" And you know what I did? I minimized it. I 100% minimized it to them. I told the people closest to me at that time that it was no big deal, that I was fine. You know what I didn't tell them? I didn't tell them how scared I was. I didn't tell them that I really needed them. I didn't tell them that even though I was saying it was fine, what I really wanted them to do is push a little more and say, "Are you sure? Because you are in a hospital and you're going to be in a hospital for a few days. That doesn't sound like you're fine." But I assured them that it was fine, that it was minimal. I even remember cracking a couple of jokes about it. And so they said, okay. And they stayed away, right? They called a couple of days later saying, "Hey, you okay?" And I said, "Sure. Yeah, no, I'm good. Thanks for checking in." But you know, the truth was that I was devastated. On the surface, it felt like anger, but underneath it all, it was hurt and disappointment. And most of all, it was loneliness. The hard part to admit back then, and you know, even now, is that they didn't know that I needed them because I never said it. I had learned to swallow my needs so well that even I barely recognized my needs. And this, folks, is what emotional self-abandonment looks like. You disappear quietly, even to yourself. This is a pattern that really drove my behavior for so long. And I didn't know it. I didn't recognize it until much later, because the pattern that I'm talking about here didn't fully unravel for me until my marriage forced me to look at it. My second marriage, to be specific, and the one that I am still in almost 2 decades later. I was in a relationship, in a marriage that was safe and supportive, and yet I still felt unseen. It wasn't because the other person didn't care. I realized later that it was because I didn't know how to let myself be seen. There were things that happened in our marriage with family dynamics where I would say things like, "But aren't you noticing that?" And there was a denial or a minimization, and I would just cave. And I felt resentful and sad and hurt and lonely and angry, all the things that I mentioned before. And this happened for quite a while until one day things just cracked open. I'm going to be inviting my husband into this podcast. He is a wonderful man who is not perfect like any of us are, but who is 100,000% the person who has been willing to work on himself, to work on us in a way that has helped me to open up and feel supported and feel safe about asking for help and for support. And when you realize that you have that, when you realize that you have that person who is a constant and who refuses to give up on you because they are also refusing to give up on being a better version of themselves, that is one of the moments of reckoning where so many people eventually find themselves. And you start to realize that the roles that you learn to survive they're just no longer serving you. You spend your life doing everything right, checking all the boxes, showing up for everyone, and still quietly starving for emotional connection. And this isn't because you're dramatic. It's not because you're broken. And it's certainly not because you're too sensitive. It's because you were never taught how to name what you feel, because you were never taught how to ask for what you need. And perhaps you weren't even allowed the space to do so. It's because you were never taught that your internal world matters. This isn't something that's done necessarily on purpose. And as a matter of fact, this is probably the hardest part of this inner work. So much of this comes from external conditioning, but a lot of times it's actually from families that are incredibly well-meaning and who are showing up and doing all the things, but they're also showing up with expectations of who you're supposed to be and labels. And a lot of times with parents not realizing that they're trying to live their dreams through you. But the thing is that every one of us is born with the right to what I refer to as emotional real estate. That means that you have the right to have feelings. You have the right to take up emotional space. And yet, so many of the adults in our lives as we were growing up did not have the capacity to protect that space for us or even let us know that it's there for us. And so instead, what do? We adapt. We adapted. We became what was needed. We became the calm one, the capable one, the strong one, the one that doesn't need much. That probably worked for a really long time until it didn't, because you can be loved and still feel unseen. You can be needed and still feel emotionally empty. Are you hearing that? I want you to hear that. Feel it in your soul. It's not a but, it is an and. These things can and do live together. And if that is you, I'm here to tell you that you are not failing. You are waking up. You're hearing this podcast today because you are ready to wake the F up. Now, this podcast, I'll tell you what it is and what it's not. You can go to therapy. You can join coaching programs, and you can read every self-help book that's out there on the shelf. But if you lack self-awareness, nothing changes. Nothing does, because you cannot change what you are not aware of. And that is what this podcast is about, helping you understand how conditioning shaped you and how to change it. It is about self-awareness, how to gain it, how to get through the discomfort of becoming self-aware, because it's not always a joyride, by the way. When you become self-aware, you also start accepting that you have feelings and emotions that you had previously denied yourself. And it may also mean that there are things, situations, and people who you're going to have to address, even if it's addressing it within yourself, not necessarily a confrontation with anybody else, just simply within yourself. And even that is uncomfortable. Self-awareness, my friends, is where emotional health begins. And it is also where emotional wealth is built. So that's what this show is about. It is about learning to name what you feel. It is about learning to trust yourself. It is about setting boundaries without guilt. It's also about creating relationships that feel honest and nourishing. But most of all, this podcast is about learning how to heal the relationship that you have with yourself, because that relationship with yourself is the longest relationship that you will ever have. And it is the relationship that matters more than any other relationship that you have. It starts with you, whether you are a sister, a brother, a spouse, significant other, a parent, a friend, a coworker. It does not matter. It starts with you. The relationship that you have with yourself is the one that you have the most agency over. It is the one that you have the most control over. And it is also the foundation for everything else that you want to do. So what can you expect here? Every week, you're going to get some tools. You're going to get some knowledge dropped. You're going to get some micro practices. You're going to get some real talk and honest conversations. We're going to talk about how childhood conditioning shows up in adult relationships, why your body signals matter more than you think. This is a big topic, y'all. You need to start trusting your body and the signals that it gives you, because it is always trying to tell you something. And if you listen, your body will tell you what your mind isn't yet ready to process. We're also going to talk about the emotional cost of always being the strong one and the reliable one. It's hard to always be the one to do so much of that lifting, that emotional labor. If you're finding that you're the one that's doing a lot of that lifting and it's not working for you anymore, then the buck stops here. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about how to change it. And the other thing we're going to talk about is what it actually takes to stop performing and start living. I want you to live fulfilled. I want you to live connected. I want you to have mutually loving and nurturing relationships where people that you love can count on you and vice versa. This is a two-way street. What this podcast is not, even though I am a licensed therapist, this is not abstract therapy. This is clear, grounded, real talk for people who have lived way too long in performance mode. You are not here to do more, my friends. You are here to feel more. That's it. That's the mission of the podcast. It is to help you build emotional wealth so that achievement no longer comes at the cost of connection. Self-awareness is powerful. And like I said before, it can be uncomfortable, 100,000% uncomfortable. Yes, because you start to notice things that you once ignored. You start to reevaluate relationships. You start to notice some relationships that used to work for you and serve you that no longer do. And that's painful. That can be very hurtful. You go through grieving the loss of these relationships. You may start to set boundaries that feel really uncomfortable because they're unfamiliar. And we are going to be doing a lot of talk about boundaries because people are so afraid of boundaries. And yet healthy boundaries are the key to healthy relationships. Boundaries start with you. Boundaries are for you. They're not for other people. And we're going to talk more about that too, because I want you to learn about that. I want you to learn how to apply these things. And the other thing I want you to know is that whenever you feel discomfort, discomfort is not failure. Discomfort, more often than not, means growth. And yes, the truth is that sometimes you feel worse before you feel better. But, that's just a part of the work. And I'm going to be here. I will walk you through it. I will be side by side with you because I have been there and this is a lifelong journey. There'll be things that I'll be talking about with you that I've been there, done that. And there'll be things that, man, I'm going to be sharing with you that I'm going through right alongside you. So if you're tired of carrying the emotional load, if you want to be seen, not just needed, and if you're ready to name what is happening inside of you, you are home. This is your space for clarity, self-compassion, and change. This is not motivational fluff or surface level advice. This is real insight with real tools and moving towards real shifts. I want to remind you that you deserve to feel grounded and connected and nourished and seen, not for what you achieve and you do and perform, but for who you are, authentically you. And I know that word authenticity gets thrown around so much, and it's also not the easiest thing to do. I get that. But at the end of the day, that is what we're striving for. Progress, not perfection. We're going to move from emotional disconnection to clarity and direction. I want to help you build your emotional wealth. So let's do that together. Thank you for being here. And if this episode resonated with you, or if you know someone who could use this message, please share it. Share this episode. And until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and stay emotionally wealthy. Oh, hey, quick reminder for you that this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult a qualified professional with any questions you might have.